a popular journalist, interviewer, blogger, and just for a moment,
of Russia, even Chechnya and Ingushetia, laureate of the USSR State Prize and the Lenin Komsomol Prize.
Three-time winner of the Person of the Year award in Putin's Russia.
Honestly, for me, it means a free pass to the least embarrassing party held in Barvika.
Born in the GDR, Ukrainian by origin, who was always proud of his Russianness long before it became mainstream among the ultra-patriots.
And all of this is precisely because I am Ustin, and that is the simple truth of the matter.
When it's convenient, profitable, and safe, he's a fierce oppositionist and almost the bitterest enemy of the bunkered Tsar.
I urge you to speak about this, not to stay silent.
It seems to me that silence has stopped being a safe haven. And since there's no difference, I don't understand why you, who are much smarter, much more educated, and simply better.
Although, in reality, he's probably the most successful PR agent for Putin among young people and neutral viewers.
Is Vladimir Putin considered a handsome guy in your opinion?
A freedom-loving liberal who adores America, Europe, and democracy, yet hesitates on the key question for good Russians.
You bastards will still answer to me for Sevastopol.
Although, what's so surprising about the ambiguity of a supposed anti-militarist who is the son of a Russian officer and, at the same time, a military inventor?
Please stand up now. When a lieutenant is speaking to you.
Yuri Dud is the most popular and influential journalist of the opposition wing in Erefia. And it would seem nothing about him betrays a puppet of the bunker regime. Neither his father's officer epaulettes sticking out, nor his blatant sycophancy with the traditional question about Putin, nor his cowardly stance that things aren't so clear-cut.
Am I truly the enemy in this situation?
Today's rather extensive and detailed conversation has, I must admit, genuinely raised some significant and unsettling suspicions within me concerning that particular matter, causing me a degree of unease. However, despite these emerging doubts, I sincerely and profoundly hope that I am deeply and entirely mistaken in my current assessment.
Yura was born in the German city of Potsdam, GDR, in the family of Alexander Petrovich Dud. Both the head of the family, Alexander, and his wife Anna, are ethnic Ukrainians. That's why Yura prefers to sit on two chairs at once. He says about himself that he is an ethnic Ukrainian, but Russian in terms of self-identity.
I'm Russian, just don't start with that nonsense.
After the fall of the Berlin Wall, the Dud family moved to Moscow via Ukraine. Until the age of 10, Yuri dreamed of a football career, but bouts of bronchial asthma made their own adjustments to the boy's plans. And starting from an early age, at 11, Dud switches to playing on the front lines of sports journalism.
The game was even, both teams played.
Meanwhile, Yuri's ancestors are conquering new horizons in Moscow. About his parents, it's either good or nothing, and Dud prefers to remain silent about them. But we'll fill in this information gap for you. The blogger's mother works as a chemistry teacher at the Moscow Secondary Specialized School of Olympic Reserve No. 3 of the Moscow Sports Committee, while his father works as the head of the military department at the Bauman Moscow State Technical University. Yes, you heard right. The father of a liberal, an opponent of war, and Putin is one of the blacksmiths of the Russian military machine.
Guns.
We will have modern guns.
In the case of Yuri's father, calling him a blacksmith is no exaggeration. Judge for yourself. Alexander Dud took up teaching in military affairs back in 1979, right after graduating from military school. Dud's dad is a military fanatic to the core. This is perfectly demonstrated by an excerpt from his biography.
It should be noted that his desire to become a military man was formed back in his youth. Back in 1974, when he was writing his application to enter military school, it turned out that the required age for admission was a bit higher than Alexander Petrovich's age at the time. So he personally appealed to the Minister of Defense of the USSR, asking for an exception to be made, and his request was granted. He took the military oath at the age of 16.
Currently, Dud's father's list of titles is as follows: Retired Colonel of the Occupying Army, Honored Worker of the Higher School of the Russian Federation, Professor, Doctor of Sciences, and active member of the Academy of Military Sciences. In his free time, Dud's father writes specialized military books and invents various gadgets that enhance the combat power of the occupying country. For example, at the end of 2018, the surname Dud appeared on a patent for a military device that improves the off-road capability of Russian tanks.
This is actually quite something.
At the same time, Yuri Dud himself presents himself as a sort of anti-war hipster. He finds everything militaristic, aggressive, and military, especially war itself, completely alien. Just a peaceful dandelion.
But what exactly could I do to help people who are suffering from this insane war?
Before Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the Ukrainian Yuri Dud tried to maintain a neutral stance on relations between Kyiv and Moscow. But he doesn't exactly manage to do this convincingly, and there's a strong whiff of Russian traditionalism about it.
There is a Russian spirit there, it smells of Rus.
From time to time, his imperial Russian self-perception takes over. Yuri Dud forgets about his own origins and plays along with the Kremlin, Russian propaganda, and censorship. For example, he deletes from his interview with Ukrainian blogger Ivanguy the part where Ivan talks about the horrors that Russia brought to Ukraine.
Why did you suddenly stop liking the Russian authorities?
Well, there's a big historical context, like this has always been happening, Ukrainians and Russians clashing, right? So, it's in my roots. My great-grandmother used to tell me about it, the Holodomor, Stalin, the horrors that happened in the countryside, all that crap. Then the next generation, my grandfather would say how the NKVD troikas would come and take away everything, all the grain.
After the occupation of Crimea and the war in Donbass, during an interview with Dmitry Gordon, it was as if either Leopold the cat or Solovyov the bandit possessed Dud. And Yuri started to reflect on peace, friendship, and chewing gum, all under the source of mutual blame between Kyiv and Moscow.
Based on everything I've asked and the way you've answered, don't you think that not only Russia is to blame for how tragically things turned out, but also those who led Ukraine? And accordingly, Ukraine is also to blame for this. That this is a classic quarrel where both sides are at fault.
At the same time, Dud is entirely an opposition figure, a friend of the Navalny's, an enemy of Putler, and a regular participant in opposition rallies in Russia.
It should be noted that the popular internet interviewer Yuri Dud was also present at the rally among other citizens. Earlier, he also wrote about what was happening on social media.
Yuri likes to dream and reflect on a European and democratic future for the great and mighty.
In my view, Russia is still Europe. More Europe than Asia. And it is quite possible to live by democratic principles in Russia.
At the same time, for some reason, Dud denies Ukraine the right to a democratic choice. He publicly criticizes and discredits the European aspirations of Ukrainians and the revolution of dignity.
Again, I am by no means holding up present-day Ukraine as an example because there are a huge number of problems there. And it's clear that the revolution of dignity turned out not to be much of a revolution of dignity after all.
And of course, how could we do without the classic Crimean question? For Yuri, the occupation of the Ukrainian peninsula by Russia is nothing more than a reason for jokes.
Ryan Giggs had a great career. It started when Crimea was still ours. It ended when Crimea was already ours.
Another side of Yuri is his role as a fighter against state-run zombie TV and corrupt propagandists. Dud rightfully denounces Solovyov and other Putinist media puppets, calling them merchants of hate and lying hacks.
And Russia is the only country in the world that can actually turn the USA into radioactive ash.
However, all of this is only true for now. That is, until the opportunity arises to interview one of the most repulsive and disgraced mouthpieces of Goebbels TV.
You can pull down your pants right now and show your small penis, which you once talked about. Are you afraid to do that?
Instead of publicly shaming Putin's favorite propagandist, Russia's best interviewer, who also happens to be an opposition figure, lets the aging propagandist destroy and humiliate him. And all of this happens on his own turf, in front of a huge audience. At that point, many people started saying it was a setup with the authorities in a prearranged game of playing along.
The builder and architect Vladimir Mazulin, who participated in the construction.
Now they said he is an architect, but he is not an architect. He doesn't have an architectural education.
And then Voitova was fired. Why did they do that?
To this day, I believe you prepare for your interviews. But Lina Voitova is still doing an excellent job, so to speak, and may she have good health.
Your brother is a German citizen. When did he move and why?
No, my brother is actually a full US citizen.
Does he live in Germany?
No, he doesn't live in Germany. You are not preparing well.
After the start of the full-scale war, Dud, together with his wife Olga and their children Elena and Daniil, whose names Yura has tattooed on his arms, moved to Spain, taking with him everything he had earned through hard work and advertising integrations. According to Forbes, every year Yuri earned, and may still be earning, between $1 and $2 million from his YouTube channel. With such a substantial fortune and most importantly millions of loyal subscribers, Dud left his breadwinner, Mother Russia.
I see you love money selflessly.
The full-scale war and life in emigration far from Moscow gave Yura more courage and loosened his tongue. He drastically changed his rhetoric, and instead of talking about the classic quarrel between brothers and the idea that both sides are always to blame, he began to assert that Putin alone is to blame for everything.
And you are not the greatest of kings at all, but merely an outstanding one, nothing more.
It must be admitted, there were very few Russian celebrities who took such a stance. Most like Kirkorov, Baskov, Leps, and even Schnur started singing along and dancing to Putin's deadly tune. Well, in the land of the blind, even Dud is a brave man. That's why Yuri became one of the most famous anti-war voices in Eritrea. In April 2022, Dud was awarded the honorary status of foreign agent for his activities.
Plot twist.
Interviews about the war with reasonable speakers were getting tens of millions of views. Dud and his guests uncompromisingly condemned the aggressive war and the actions of the occupiers, harshly criticized Putin, his inner circle, and the entire Kremlin elite, but at the same time never forgot to lament the loss of a beautiful future Russia.
I am fighting for Russia.
Undoubtedly, at a certain stage of the information war, Dud's contribution should not be underestimated. It was he who set off the bomb that splattered filth and made a laughingstock of everyone who supported Putin's war. Yuri achieved the incredible. He managed to lure into his net and reveal the true face, or rather, to dig into the minds of the die-hard patriots. And at that point, even the most fanatical ones started to feel awkward.
My wife brought me a video, of some girl from Italy.
Katya, I think her name is...
Once again, you spoke so confidently. Are you saying you know this based on the opinion of a girl blogger from Italy?
No, wait, please, take a look.
Is that all?
Wait, hold on.
This is just incredibly embarrassing, to be perfectly honest.
Yuri just picked and recorded the most narrow-minded and stupid chauvinists, viewers wrote in the comments. Most of us aren't like that, insisted the Z-heads. But the deeper Dud went into the woods, or rather, the birch grove, the thicker and dumber the partisans became.
Seriously, we are one people, Yuri.
The Holy Rus, united in three.
Dud took into account the mistakes of the past, namely, the interview with Dmitry Kiselyov. And now, confidently, monotonously, and cynically, he was taking down the Putinists, each one more so than the last.
Everything I'm about to say is complete nonsense. Really? It's just some old lady said something. For what purpose? So when you get a direct question, do you understand why?
I have absolutely no idea why.
But the only thing I'm sure of is that it's absolutely not to conquer Ukraine.
And the funniest thing is, the arrogant and conceited Putinist rats obediently crawled right to Dud's pipe.
1, 2, 3, mother.
They were literally competing for the title of the least intelligent and amazed with the depth of their degradation.
Who killed Prigozhin?
Putin! Do you have any doubts about that?
I don't.
Me neither.
Am I correct in understanding that you're now claiming that Vladimir Putin killed the 2 pilots and the stewardess who were flying with Prigozhin, Utkin, and everyone else?
Well, look.
All these characters eventually turned into real memes and served the noble cause of creating the true image of the bunker czar's loyal subjects.
Of course, you can call red green and brown, say, orange.
Having become a laughingstock, the disgraced Z supporters who faced off against Dud rushed to justify themselves, which only made things worse. It seems that was already too much. Dud's stance as a good Russian became genuinely dangerous for the Kremlin. And gradually, Yuri's rhetoric began to change. The further things went, the more often it started to feel like Dud was gradually but steadily leaning toward the Z supporters and Putin's propagandists.
NATO promised not to expand.
In his statements, Dud began to openly adopt westernized language and carefully promote the Kremlin's favorite narratives.
What's the actual point, really, in actively supporting a small, deeply corrupt dictatorship that, on top of absolutely everything else, is currently losing a protracted war to a much bigger, equally corrupt dictatorship?
Do you mean that now you support not the small corrupt country, but the big corrupt country?
No.
Right now, the country is plagued by rampant corruption, and he either doesn't see the problem or is part of it. I try to believe that he just doesn't see it. How would you comment on that word?
But as it turned out, that was just the tip of the iceberg. The real puppet will be revealed during the interview with Alexander Nevzorov. Against the backdrop of such a hostile conversation with one of Putin's main critics, it's hard not to recall the tone in which Yuri Dud planned to interview Russia's bloody dictator.
Vladimir Vladimirovich, we need 60 minutes for a sit-down conversation and another 10 to 15 minutes for cutaways. Please have a seat.
So what are we left with in the end? A man-Kurd who abandoned the homeland of his ancestors in an attempt to sit on two chairs ended up falling off both. And now it would be better for Yura not to mention his Ukrainian roots at all. For most people, everything about him has become perfectly clear, so Yuri no longer needs to hide and can now openly play Putin's tune.
It's funny that I'm not actually Russian, but Ukrainian, but, well, that's something history keeps quiet about.
I would like to remind you that this video is created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolized or exaggerated form to convey a comedic or dramatic effect. Our goal is not to mislead, but to highlight humor. Please take it with a smile.